Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're continuing our look at the Worldwake set, and we're going to look at Mysterious Realms, which is a green and blue deck. So let's start looking at that one. So, you know how in Zendikar we had Unstable Terrain, which was blue-green landfall? Yeah, it's that again. So immediately going to start off with kind of a little bit of a rant. This is the same as the vampire deck we recently looked at, that where it's basically the same as the Zendikar one, just with slightly newer cards. And I just don't understand why this was done. Like to have 2 out of the 5 decks in Worldwake be almost identical to the ones in Zendikar. I don't know. It seems like such a weird choice to make. So I mean, a lot of this is going to be similar to what we've already seen, which makes it really difficult for me to talk about. I can talk about like new cards, but for the bulk of it is like we've seen it already. So yeah, it's some very weird choices made with the Zendikar block pre-constructed decks, which I think I'm going to cover that when we've looked at all of them, and just kind of I don't know, sum up my really like frustration with it, because like Zendikar is like a good block, like there's some really good cards in there. I just don't feel like these intro decks really did a good job of showing them off. I don't know. Anyway, let's press on. Let's press on. So, Baloth Woodcrasher, 4 and 2 green for a 4/4. Has landfall, so whenever land ends the battlefield under control, it gets +4/+4 against trample and turn 10. Great card. This is always like pulling the weight. I feel like in a green landfall deck, just swinging as an 8/8 trample potentially. Yeah, it's really really good. Potentially bigger. Yeah, great, good start. 2 calcite snappers, convertible turtle. So 1 and 2 blue for a 1/4 with shroud, which is, I think that's pretty good. Has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you can switch its power and toughness until end of turn, which is good. I mean, makes it pretty frail then with only 1 toughness, but this is counteracted by having shroud, so it's actually, I think, a bit more survivable than it would look. And it is May, so you don't have to do it. But yeah, I think this is fine, especially if you've got a way of dropping lands at instant speed, which I think the deck does. Then you can do this like mid combat if it's not blocked and be like, haha, now it's actually 4 damage. Sure. A single Tide Force Elemental, 2 and a blue for a 2/1. 1 blue tap, you can tap or untap another type creature, and has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, you can untap Tide Force Elemental. Really like Tide Force Elemental, because I like these kind of puppeteer effects where you can tap or untap a creature, because it just has so much utility. So the fact that this can do it, potentially more than once a turn, I think is really good. So yeah, I like Tide Force Elemental. In an ideal world, this would be like a 1/2 or even a 1/3, just so it could be more defensive. Because I kind of like my utility creatures to have higher toughness, but it's perfectly fine as is. I really like Tide Force Elemental. Territorial Baloth, we've seen this in the previous one, just a 4/4 for 5. Landfall gives it +2/+2. Yep, again, like perfectly fine. Lets it kind of punch above its mana value, I suppose. Yeah, it's fine. Single Hedron Rover, so this is a new one from Worldwake. It's essentially just the colorless landfall creature. So 4 mana, 2/2, gets +2/+2 on a landfall. Yeah, it's just it's just easier to cast, but smaller territorial Baloth. I think just another territorial Baloth would have been better, honestly. But at least you guaranteed to cast it because it's colorless. Sure, I'm really trying to find nice things to say about it, but yeah, it's okay. A single Merfolk Wayfinder, so we had this in the last landfall deck as well. So 2 and a blue for a 1/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all islands revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So weird blue ramp effect. Well, not ramp, is it? It's sort of, well, it's kind of ramp. It's digging out your land, but yeah, it's okay. It's a little weird to see this effect in blue, but it's fine. I think in this, sure. Single Frontier Guide. Yep, this is a good way of triggering landfall instant speed. 1 in the green for a 1/1. 3 in the green, tap, set your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Yep, I think that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. not much to say about it. It's just a good effect. A little expensive, but obviously the more land you get out, the easier it is to do this effect, I suppose. Living Tsunami is another landfall enabler. 2 and 2 blue for a 4/4 flyer, which is like pretty good stats. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice it unless you return a land you control to owner's hand. So, yep, this lets you return your land to your hand, play it again, get your landfall triggers. That does take up your land drop for the turn, but you've got enough ways in this deck to get multiple lands out in a turn. It's like it's not such a big drawback, and also it's just a big 4/4 flyer, so which is fine. You can just be really aggressive with it. Yeah, I like Living Tsunami is perfectly fine. And then another landwalk enabler is Walking Atlas. So 2 mana for a 1/1. Interesting bit of trivia about this: it should be an artifact creature. The artifact was left off the off its type line. So this is technically, as it's written, the first card that is a colorless non-artifact creature. So it was Eldrazi before the Eldrazi were printed, I suppose. But yeah, it's been oracled. It is an artifact creature. So yeah. Just an interesting bit of trivia. You can tap, you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this goes obviously really well with Living Tsunami. You can do this, mid combat with all your landfall creatures. Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty fun ability to have just on a little utility creature like this, like a little 2 mana 1/1. Yeah, I think it's a pretty useful ability. Play twice as many lands. Yeah, it's good. I like it. Coral Merfolk, whatever, it's just 2/1 for 2. And then one of the rares, this is the foil face rare, which is, okay, a weird choice to make. It's Goliath Sphinx, so 5 and 2 blue for an 8/7 flyer. And I sort of talked about it a little bit in the last deck, because this was a card I suggested, like what could have been in the flyover deck, but I just find this card super boring and like kind of weird. Like I said in the last video, I would expect this card in a core set, like Mahamoti Jin. It's just a big flyer, and it's rare because it is a big flyer. But to have this in kind of like an expert level set just feels lazy, I suppose. Because it's just like, oh, we need another blue rare. Oh, there's a big Sphinx. All right, cool. What does he do? He flies. Yeah, sure, that's fine. Like it feels very like, oh, we need one more blue rare. And they just came with this idea. So it has like nothing to do with landfall. The closest thing you say, like, it's a big creature, so you ramp up into it. But yeah, it's just super boring. I mean, like, it's really nice artwork and stuff. You can say lots of nice things about the artwork, and it's sure, like dropping an 8/7 flyer is going to be like a big threat as well. But like, it's not really on theme, and I guess that's what bothers me. This could have easily had a landfall trigger. I suppose it could have been designed with that. Like, I know landfall. Like, I know you draw a card. It could have been that. It could have been like a smaller creature. Could have been like a 6/6 or a 5/5 or something, and landfall. Draw a card or draw 2 cards and discard a card. Something like that. Just something that made it on the theme. Yeah, I do think this is a very lazily designed card, and it's such. I think it's just a very disappointing like foil face rare. Yeah, very upsetting. It's really don't understand how these Worldwake decks were put together, honestly. Single ether trade wins. So 2 and a blue. Return a permanent you control and permanent you don't control to owner's hand. So this is a really nice way of actually triggering landfall again. You can just get one of your lands back to your hand, and then either play it again that turn, or you've got it for next turn. And also bounce a opponent's creature. So this is actually a pretty good spell, and I really wish there'd been more than one. But we're in the era of 41 cards, so our deck space is at a premium. But yeah, I think this is like a perfectly fine card to have in this kind of deck. Single Mysteries of the Deep, 4 and a blue for an instant, draw 2 cards. Landfall, if you had a land enter the battlefield under your control this turn, draw 3 cards instead. So this is okay, I think. So, I mean, if you got landfall in this and you're drawing 3 at instant speed for 5, I think that's okay. That's actually, that's what I'd expect. This is definitely overcosted if you're only drawing 2 cards. 5 mana at instant speed to draw 2 cards is kind of not great. So yeah, definitely wait until you hit landfall with this one, I think. And 2 treasure hunts, 1 in the blue. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, then put all cards revealed this way into your hand. So yeah, you basically dig until you find a non-land card. Which, depending how the deck is stacked, you could be potentially drawing quite a few cards. I mean, the fact they all go into your hand is pretty good. Sometimes this will just be draw 1, but it could be, draw 3 or 4 even, depending how the top of your deck is stacked. I don't think there's any real ways in the deck of kind of like manipulating the top of your deck, really, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I think it's a fine effect, honestly. If you know, as it has a very high potential. Single vapor snare, 4 and a blue, enchant creature. You control the enchanted creature at the beginning of your upkeep. Sacrifice vapor snare, unless you return a land you control to owner's hand. So yeah, this is kind of like another landfall enabler, I guess. It's like living tsunami. Yeah, I think it's fine as a mind control variant. It's doing something you kind of want to do in this deck, which is keep getting your land back into your hand so you can keep replaying it. This is okay, sure. 2 wins Decon, a single blue, goes on the land. The land becomes a 2/2 blue elemental with flying, and if it dies, it goes back into your hand. So yeah, this is fine. It means that your land isn't permanently destroyed when this dies. This being a single blue is actually really good. It's actually a really nice turn 1 play, because then you can swing with it on turn 2. Yeah, I like Win Zendikon. Out of all the Zendikons, I think this one might be my favourite, just because it's the cheapest and it gives evasion, basically. Yeah, and the fact you don't lose the land when it dies is pretty good. So yeah, yeah, good choice, I think. And then the other rare is Seer's Sundial. So 4 mana artifact, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 2 if you do draw a card. Sure. So this is kind of the effect that I thought the Goliath Sphinx should have had, really. And then I don't know. This is like fine. It's just, I don't know. It just feels a little boring for an intro pack, but it's perfectly fine. It's turning lands into card draw, which is good. You're getting, you're kind of doubling up on resources. Not only are you getting a land, but you're also potentially drawing a card. So yeah, this is okay, I think. Basic comes down to the fact that Worldwake just did not have a great card pool for supporting like these kind of strategies, I don't think. Or like all the good landfall stuff was mythic, and like just these decks didn't have mythic rares in them. That wasn't just how they were made, which is a shame, because then we missed out on fun stuff like Rampaging Baloths and Avenger of Zendikar, like really good landfall spells. Anyway, and then 2 Paralyzing Grasp, 2 in a blue, goes on a creature, doesn't untap during untap step. Fine. This is actually okay in this deck, because you have Tide Force Elemental to tap stuff down, and then you can do this. So yeah, it's a little better here, because you actually have a way of tapping an opponent's creature down. And then a single Telepathy. Talked about Telepathy a bunch. I have no idea why it's in this deck. It does nothing. It is just here to fill space, I think. But yeah, I've talked about Telepathy a lot. I'm not a big fan of it. So then we have 2 Halimar Depths. Halimar Depths enter the battlefield tapped. When Halimar Depths enter the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order and tap to add blue. So this actually combos with Treasure Hunt. So you do actually have a way of stacking your deck a little bit. So yeah, this is pretty good. I say all these spell lands, or like these effect lands from Zendikar, at common, I really like them. I think they're all pretty good. This one is quite nice, I think, just to set up your next 3 turns. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. And then 8 for SA Island, sure. So what could have been? So I know these are just commons here, but it's because I say the deck is using really the best that's available. It is insane to me that it doesn't have Explore in it, because Explore is like 100% what this deck wants to do. 1 in a green sorcery. You can play an additional land this turn and you draw a card. That is absolutely what this deck wants to do, and I have no idea why it doesn't have even 1 Explore in here. It's just it blows my mind. Groundswell as well could have gone here as a pump spell. It's 1 green, gives a creature +2/+2 until end of turn, but if you've had landfall, it's +4/+4 instead. So we kind of see this kind of pump effect in lots of blocks. Like it's the green pump spell that costs single green, gives you +2/+2. If you meet a certain condition, it's +4/+4. So yeah, this could have been here. And Pilgrim's Eye, I thought, could have worked. 3 mana for 1/1 flyer, and when it ends the battlefield, you search for a basic land card, put it into hand, then shuffle. So it gives you a flyer, sets up a land. Again, it's kind of everything the deck wants to do, I suppose. So in summary, in my opinion, this is just a worse version of Unstable Terrain from Zendikar. I don't think it's using some of obviously the new Worldwake cards, like Tide Force Elemental, I suppose. But yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know, just doesn't feel as good. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it doesn't feel as good looking at it. I think mostly because like the rares are really underwhelming compared to Unstable Terrain. Because Goliath Sphinx, I say it's a big old flyer, but that's all it does. Whereas Royal Elemental in the last deck had this really interesting effect that cared about landfall, which is what the deck's trying to do. And I say it just feels very similar. You got so many of the same cards in there, which is something we saw with like the vampire deck really. But anyway, that's how it is. And so I really don't understand why they decided like, oh, we'll do another landfall deck and we'll do it green blue again. Some very frustrating choices made with Worldwake, which is it's not endearing itself to me. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this deck after seeing it? If you got any stories, thoughts, comments, opinions about it, stick a comment below. Always like reading those. I'll be back next time. I'm going to look at the last Worldwake intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.